done! Inventor 2017, it can now import OBJ files, which is one of those file formats which is like, really? It didn't do that in the past? I've tried it, to be honest. Like, there's been a couple of times where I've wanted to import an OBJ object into Inventor, something you've downloaded from a website or something you've been sent, and it just doesn't support it. You're like, hang on a minute, but other Autodesk programs can export OBJ files, and Inventor can't import them. Alright then, well that makes a lot of sense. Well, now it can be done. Now it can be done. So it's sort of like one of these sort of, yeah, okay, fair enough, it should have done it all along things, but it's actually quite a big deal. It'll be a big deal for a few people out there. So place component, and then on the drop down, well, actually it'll work from open as well, but place component, and then on the files of type option, files of type drop down, you've now got the OBJ file extension there. Let's browse to my desktop where I have an OBJ file. You can go to the options where you can specify where to put the import translation report. Just embed that in the document as you always do. Template units, I have no idea what the units are of this thing that I'm importing. But that's okay in that. And then let's open it and see what happens. And there she blows. There's my OBJ file on the end of the cursor. It's a car. It's a bloody good looking one as well. Let's drop that into the assembly. And you'll see the OBJ, in this case, converts into a mesh feature. Which, well, actually, you can't see that because I haven't got the mesh entities visible. Let's see if I can turn those on. Shaded with edges. There you go. You can see it. It is a mesh object, so it's looking a little something like that. Right, that leads us on to the next thing, which is there's quite a few enhancements in Inventor 2017 with regards to how it lets you interact with mesh objects. So that'll probably, I would imagine, I haven't got one offhand, but include STL files, which usually come in as some kind of mesh object. So that'll be good for manipulating 3D printed objects or objects that you're about to 3D print. So what can we do with mesh objects now? Well, in assembly mode, if you, for example, place another component in, and because I don't know what the units are like, I have no idea what's going to happen here. So let's just let's pick something at random, something like that. Oh God, yeah, typical. Yeah, that's a small car. That's a small car. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Well, the point is, you can now constrain objects to mesh entities. So using just the standard constrain tool, you can pick up, for example, the center line of one object, and then you can come to your mesh, and it will pick up mesh entities and allow you to constrain to those mesh entities, which is pretty nice. It's pretty nice. I like that. That's good. You can also create work features directly on the mesh entities. So work planes, work axes, and work points, they will now recognize mesh entities. That's good. So also measure distance works with mesh entities. It doesn't work in quite the way I was expecting it to. I was expecting measure distance to be able to pick up the vertices on mesh sort of segments, polygons, but it doesn't really work like that. It's just picking up mesh faces, and it'll let you pick faces and measure the distance between two faces. So that's the interaction you get with that. And finally, if we edit the mesh object itself, let's double click the actual object itself. Maybe the measure distance command works once you're inside here. No, it doesn't. Does it? No, it doesn't. Just checking. So once you're inside the mesh object, you've got a new command on the surface panel called Fit Mesh Face. And this is varying degrees of success I found with this. What it should allow you to do is, it's like a paintbrush tool. It allows you to paint the polygons and convert them into surfaces. So you can take a mesh face and paint them. And like this, you can see these white objects here are what I want to convert into a surface. And what I should get is a flat surface covering these mesh faces. But what I'm ending up seeing is just bizarre sort of looped surfaces like this coming up all over the place. I've yet to have any success with it. But that may be because the component that I've imported here, this car, is just too big, it's too complex perhaps, there's too many faces, I don't know, but I've had varying degrees of success with it. But the tool's there to use it if you want. So Fit Mesh Face, you can change the brush size, so you can make the brush size a lot bigger, so you can paint more surfaces. You've got a tolerance, you can have it automatically detect the kind of surface it's going to create from painting the mesh entities. But I've yet to find it to work. So I mean, you can try and paint the entire bonnet here, and I want to turn that into a surface to use with, but it's just having none of it. Even if I pick up all the middle bits, and it's going to make that there. It's yeah, it's not brilliant. It's not brilliant, but that could be down to the object that I am using. You might have different levels of success when you try to use it. So there you go. Inventor can now import OBJ files, and we have increased and enhanced interaction with mesh entities, which is something which is long overdue. Right, thanks very much, guys. That's it for this section. Thank you very much. Subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff if you haven't done already, and I'll see you in the next video. Toodles.
Here we go.